And in this economy, what kind of an impact is the government shutdown having on your wallet? Well, the Senate failed to pass a government funding bill Friday, which means the deadlock will stretch on at least until the Senate returns on Monday, and it could extend far beyond that. In the meantime, hundreds of thousands of federal employees are furloughed, and they're expected to show up for work but aren't getting their paychecks. Now, the stock market doesn't seem to be taking a hit. The S&P 500 and Dow Jones Industrial Average setting all-time highs yesterday. So what does this shutdown mean for the economy at large? Well, to help answer that, I'm joined by Eric Clark. He's a portfolio manager at LOGO ETF, as well as the chief investment officer at AccuVest Global Advisors. Eric, thank you for joining me. All right, I got to ask you, what's your take on the markets and how they have been or haven't been reacting to the shutdown so far? And what are you telling your clients?
Hey, good to have you. Good to be with you. The market has some pretty strong momentum here, and corporate America is doing pretty well. I mean, earnings ultimately drive the stock market. So there's always a lot of noise coming out of Washington and other places. But in the end, if corporate earnings are strong, the stock market tends to be strong. And so there is a little bit of a disconnect between consumer sentiment, which is certainly lower than normal and has been for many years, and the stock market. So that's a bit of a disconnect. But for now, the stock market is kind of pushing through a lot of this short-term noise with the government shutdown because it historically has, paid to do that.
But elaborate that for me, Eric. I mean, you don't seem to have to see the stock market really take a hit from this shutdown, especially when there doesn't seem to be much progress on a possible deal to reopen the government. So how is the stock market essentially bucking back on what we expect to be, or some people expect to be, some kind of recession or some kind of turn down in these markets? How's this happening?
Well, there's a lot of, animal spirits are in full force these days. And, like I said, how many of these have we seen? The movie tends to be that we have a few days, maybe a week of a shutdown, and then they figure it out because they have to. And then we move on. And so historically, the stock market just kind of yawns when this happens. Now, if this goes, another couple of weeks, that might be a different story. But again, I go back to sentiment, right? If 70% of the economy is consumer spending, job security is a big driver of consumer sentiment, and consumer sentiment is a big driver of consumer habits. So they are connected. It's just right now, where people are generally employed. We do worry about the labor market. We talk to clients about that all the time. Certainly something to watch, but we are beginning this AI productivity boom, which is great for corporate America and not as great for consumers. But for now, things look pretty good. And I think that they'll continue to be pretty good into year end because, the average stock actually is underperforming the market this year, which means that a lot of managers are underperforming, which means that any pullback will probably be pretty aggressively bought.
All right, Eric Clark trying to make things make sense for us. Thanks a lot for that.